who is Nigel Farage? If you ask Nigel, he's very much just a working class bloke who's here to knock down the walls of Westminster, give the Prime Minister a massive wedgie, and demand justice for your average Brit. You know, just your average white Brit. You know? Just the average white, non-Muslim, white Brit. Salt of the earth kind of people, you know? If you ask me, I'd probably say that he's a 6-foot lump of gum disease, or that he looks like a frog cosplaying as Mr. Bean. He's a man who seized a moment in time to galvanise a group of disaffected people to further his own ends. So, basically a politician. Yeah, a politician, yeah. But let's have a look at his humble beginnings. Nigel was born and raised in Farnborough. In his interview with the bloke off Dragon's Den, he told him that he was lucky enough to attend Dulwich College in London. He began to explain that the school had a rich history of covering tuition costs for working class kids, and that he was very lucky to be taught there. That last part isn't really relevant to him though, because his father was a stockbroker who funded 100% of the cost of his private schooling. But see how he phrased it to sound like he was one of the lucky ones that was given a place though? See how it feels like you were manipulated to believe something? Not because he lied, but because he just chose to exclude the truth. This is a common communication tactic used by this lizard in a man costume. And there's nothing wrong with having a private education, by the way. If you come from a family that can afford to give you a private education, then that's great. The thing that irritates me and so many others is the unwillingness to just accept that he had a private education and to just own it. It's not a reflection of your character, but the fact that you're willing to be so deceitful about it shows that you don't value honesty, nor do you understand what the public actually care about. During his school years, he was appointed as a prefect by the headmaster. This was opposed by an English teacher, ironically enough, who showed concern at the amount of teachers reporting his fascistic tendencies. Another person who accompanied him on a cadet camp said that he had marched with friends through a quiet Sussex village late at night shouting Hitler Youth songs. This was dismissed by the headmaster, and Farage later said that his activity within the Conservative Party, along with his admiration of Enoch Powell, was interpreted as him being far right. Fucking imagine that. Our working class lad then left school to work at the London Metal Exchange as a commodities trader. A commodities trader is someone who buys and sells stuff on an exchange. It's honestly kind of boring, but for the Zoomers out there watching, it's kinda like buying and selling NFTs, except they buy things that actually exist, and it doesn't require you to be mentally retarded. Now let's bear in mind as we move forward that despite his best efforts to convince you of the contrary, he has spent about as much time around the working class as Rishi Sunak. In 2006, Nigel became the leader of the UK Independence Party, or UKIP. Up until that point, UKIP was a fringe group that was defined by its Euroscepticism. Once Farage became their leader, they widened their policy platform to include other things like legalising handgun ownership and hating poor foreigners. In 2009, he stepped down as leader in order to focus on the 2010 general election, and once that went tits up, he was re-elected as UKIP's leader once again later that year. His total lack of success in UK elections was not reflected in the European Parliament, however. He was elected to represent South East England as an MEP 5 times. During this time, he presented well-reasoned and articulate points that brought to the surface some legitimate concerns regarding the EU. You know, in the sense that he took the piss out of some Belgian bloke's suit and said his country was shit. How this arsehole could berate anyone on their appearance when he looks like he brushes his teeth with meth-coated sandpaper, I will never know. But Nigel really cemented his status as a weapons-grade fucking ball bag during Brexit. While he didn't necessarily have a lot of political power at his disposal, he had slowly been gathering support for the cause by debating the then Deputy Prime Minister Nick Clegg and touring the country in his Brexit battle bus. Nigel campaigned alongside the likes of Boris Johnson to leave the EU, with the now infamous claim that leaving would give our NHS an extra £350 million a week. They also claimed that we could control our borders more effectively, and were strangely fixated on the fact that we would have a surplus of weirdly shaped fruits and vegetables again. I'm sure all of those things are going absolutely fine, just don't Google it or anything. Just hours after the vote to leave the EU passed, however, he backtracked on the £350 million NHS funding. See, he thinks it was a mistake for the Leave campaign to say that. I mean, he didn't correct it or oppose it, nor did he attempt to clarify his position on it one bit. But this is all reminiscent of his interview about his schooling we covered back at the start of the video. He's happy to let you think that he pledged it, and he will smile and nod as people hail it as the single biggest reason they voted to leave, but he never cared about the NHS funding in the first place. For such a big-brained, honest man of the people, he also seemingly forgot to mention that we also received rebates amounting to around 60 or so % of our net contributions. We also had the benefit of being in a single marketplace, with basically unrestricted travel anywhere within Europe. But hey, we got blue passports back. After the referendum, Nigel then made a speech in the European Parliament to tell them that an inability to forge a Brexit deal with the UK would be far worse for them than it would be for us. That was obviously bollocks then, and it's provably bollocks now. After pulling down his metaphorical kegs to take a fat shit on our lives, he resigned for a third time as leader of UKIP. Then in 2018, after the human sleeping pill Gerard Batten became leader of the party, he announced on LBC that he would be disassociating from UKIP entirely. He cited Tommy Robinson's entry into the party, alongside Batten's excessive focus on Islam, as the reasons why. Now, you know you're a fucking space cadet when Nigel Farage doesn't want to be associated with you. In November of 2018, Nigel founded a new political group, the Brexit Party. They became known shortly after as Reform UK and were basically a Eurosceptic group that advocated for a no-deal Brexit. They became somewhat popular in 2019 after winning over some high-profile Conservative MPs, and in a shocking and unpredictable turn of events, Nigel resigned as their leader in 2021. Since the glory days of fighting for our right to be poorer and more isolated, he has gone on to do a great many things. Between 2017 and 2020, he hosted the Nigel Farage Show on LBC, in which he did really important work like defending the use of the word chinky as an abbreviation of Chinese.
We can pretend, if we like.
So if you're from the council...
Well, hang on a second.
You say kufta, do you?
No. If you and your mates are going out for a Chinese, what do you say you're going for?
Oh, well, I don't know, Nigel. Maybe a Chinese? He also crossed the pond to play the role of quirky British fluffer for President-elect Donald Trump. During his time in the US of A, he argued that Trump should receive the Nobel Peace Prize, and supported Roy Moore's campaign to join the Senate. He's a man that thinks being gay should be illegal, and that Obama forged his birth certificate, and also that tragedies like Sandy Hook were because God hates abortions. The idea that God would punish the murder of children by murdering a bunch of children seems like a bit of a weird moral stance for the big guy, but I'm not a godly man, so what do I know? Moore was also accused of sexual assault by 9 girls as young as 14. While Nigel stuck by his side initially and called into question the legitimacy of their stories, he has since rescinded his support and claims it was an error of judgment. After some gig work being a Republican fart sniffer, you can now find the big man presenting his own show on GB News. Yes, that's the one that Andrew Neil started, then resigned from after 9 shows because it was a complete pile of smeg. They've since bagged some real talent though, like Eamon Holmes, and the guy that did the gossip segment on Lorraine. Truly fascinating stuff. On this show, he still spews the same shit he has for the last 25 years, and spends more time appealing to outrage culture and conspiracy theorists than bothering to be, not mental. It should be clear to us now that Nigel Farage is just a snake oil salesman. He has nothing meaningful to contribute to our political discourse. To his defenders, it doesn't matter that he bragged about claiming almost £2 million in expenses during his time as an MEP. It doesn't matter that he was docked over £35,000 in pay after it was discovered that he was using EU funds to further his domestic political ambitions. It doesn't matter that he became what he vilified the most. Just another rich politician leeching money out of the taxpayer's pocket. The man was reported to have made between £500,000 and £700,000 in broadcasting contracts over Brexit. He made £90,000 a year as an MEP, and qualifies for a further £73,000 a year pension from his work as an MEP in just 5 years' time. He also works as a broadcaster with his own self-titled show. Understand that this man isn't the voice of the people. He just hates the establishment and is happy to use you to hurt them. Thank you for watching. If you like this video, please like, subscribe, and let me know in the comments what you would like to see me cover next. Love you. Bye bye.